Have you ever wondered what applied biomechanics is? Well, you're in the right place because this video is the first in a series explaining all about biomechanics. And in this video, we'll cover not only the definition of the word, but also how biomechanics relates to other fields within kinesiology. Okay, Dr. Goodin here, and in this video, as I said, we'll be discussing an introduction to biomechanics. So what is biomechanics? Bio meaning life and mechanics referring to machines. How does it all come together? And more importantly, how does it fit within the umbrella of other kinesiology disciplines? Let's dive right into the content.
All right, here we are in the slides for today. And the big question we're addressing is, what is biomechanics? Biomechanics is simply the science of movement of the living body. So you see we have bio, body, biology, life, and mechanics, movement, machines, etc. Now, to break it down even further, biomechanics is the physics of motion exhibited or produced by biological systems. And if we want to get even more specific, it's a highly integrated field of study that examines forces acting upon, within, and produced by the body. So external forces, that would be forces acting upon. Internal forces, that would be forces within the body, so forces, ground reaction forces that are traveling up the shank and into the femur, for instance, or produced by the body via muscles. Now, biomechanics integrates biological characteristics with traditional mechanics, hence bio and mechanics. But what is mechanics? So most of us in kinesiology, we may not be brushed up on our physics. So mechanics is the branch of physics. It's a specific branch in physics that's specifically concerned with the effect of forces and energy on the motion of bodies. So if you recall Newton's 3 laws, which we'll go over in another video, those would be within the realm of mechanics. And within mechanics, we have both statics and dynamics. Now, statics is the study of systems in a state of equilibrium. So this could be at rest or in a constant state of motion. Think of somebody doing a handstand, for instance, a gymnast doing a handstand. That would be an example of statics, but so would a runner traveling at a constant speed, or a cyclist or a swimmer. Now, dynamics, on the other hand, is the study of systems in a state of accelerated or changing motion. So now we want to think of a gymnast who is doing a tumbling routine, or who is, or maybe a soccer player who's not running at a constant speed, but now they're cutting and decelerating and accelerating in different directions. So when we perform a biomechanical analysis, and we'll do that later in this course, in other videos, we can perform it from two different perspectives. The first is kinetics, and this is the study of forces like gravity or friction that inhibit, cause, facilitate, or modify motion of the body. So what is the effect of gravity on a javelin that you're throwing? Or what is the effect of friction on artificial turf as compared to grass? And then kinematics is the study of spatial and temporal characteristics of motion. So these are things like velocity, speed, displacement. Here we have a picture of Usain Bolt traveling at high velocities. And when we're looking at kinematics, we're not so much concerned with the forces as much as we are on the displacement and the rate of displacement. Now, typically we think of biomechanics in sport. There's so many examples of biomechanics in sport, it's easy to come up with them. In this case, where the example is a basketball player might injure her ankle while landing from a layup. From a kinematic perspective, how fast was that player moving at the moment of injury? So we want to know the velocity. How fast was she running when she planted her foot and took off? How fast was she moving when she impacted the ground, and was it single leg or double leg? From a kinetic perspective, we want to ask the question, how much force was absorbed by the body upon landing? So we might want to consider the stress and strain relationship of her lower leg. We might want to consider how much force she was capable of absorbing the last time she was tested on a force plate. But outside of sport, biomechanics is important as well. So think about the normal gait cycle. Scientists in the realm of motor development, motor learning, and motor control might assess an infant versus a chimpanzee as far as their stride characteristics go. So from a kinematic perspective, what's the length or the distance of these strides? From a kinetic perspective, we might ask, why do they walk with these particular characteristics? So just imagine a baby and a chimpanzee walking. They tend to walk with their arms up high out to their side, short steps, toes turned outwards for balance. How does the force produced differ between the infant and chimpanzee, or how is it the same? Now, I mentioned in the intro that biomechanics is a field that's highly related to other fields within kinesiology. Here we have a list. It's not a complete list, but biomechanics is all about movement, and so are things like ergonomics, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and so on down this list. All of these subdisciplines within kinesiology have a biomechanical component. So, for instance, biomechanics and exercise physiology. What is the relationship there? Well, if biomechanics is about movement, exercise physiology is about movement that is caused by the contraction of skeletal muscle. So in this case, we're focused on what's the physiology of that muscular contraction that causes force. And if you recall, then force is going to be under that umbrella of kinetics, or kinetic analysis within biomechanics. What about motor control? So if biomechanics is about movement, well, motor control is about the mechanisms used by the nervous system to control and coordinate the movements of the musculoskeletal system. Within motor control, we also have motor development and motor learning. So the maturation throughout the lifespan, and the motor learning is experience and or practice. How do we modify these movement patterns with practice? Now, this brings us to two important concepts. The first is an open loop skill. An open loop skill is a skill that occurs at a faster rate than feedback can change. So think of a clean and jerk in Olympic style weightlifting. In the clean and jerk, the athlete needs to accelerate the barbell off the ground, hit a series of very specific positions on the way up through the first and second and third poles, meet the bar at its apex, and catch it, and then stand up with it. And this is not a light bar, but this happens so fast, it all happens within a second or two. So the athlete often doesn't have time to reevaluate if they think, oh, the bar path was out, the bar was traveling out in front of my knees, I need to pull it back. By the time you think that, the bar is already up and you're into your third pole, and it's too late to correct. A closed loop skill, on the other hand, is a skill that can be changed while in motion as a result of feedback. So let's say that you're a runner and you're running along. Maybe you're out on a 10-mile run and it's supposed to be a tempo run at a nice steady pace, maybe around your marathon pace. And as you're running, your foot strike, every single foot strike that you feel is giving you proprioceptive feedback, as is the feeling in the muscles of your legs, as is the carriage of your arm swing. And a runner, often a good one, will intuitively know if their stride is off, if they're feeling clunky, or if they're feeling kind of stompy as they run. Maybe they're overstriding. Maybe they're feeling flat and slow because of fatigue. But they can use that feedback to then correct with every step that they take to get better running economy as they're running. And that would be an example of a closed loop skill. You can correct it as you go. Now, in these three examples that I just gave, the neuromuscular system is really the link between these disciplines, between exercise phys, motor control, and biomechanics. If we think of muscles as mini metabolic machines, these little machines can actually cause motion of the skeletal system. So therefore, these muscles are actually kinetic factors, force-producing factors, that affect kinematic values. You produce force in the muscle, and then it results in change in the body. Force produced by the muscle results in displacement of bones around joints. And muscles are under the control of the nervous system. So it's really that nervous system that links it all together. We also have ergonomics. So this takes us, again, outside of the realm of sport. So if you even look at the chair that I'm sitting in, right, it has some cushion on the back. It has these arm rests. You can adjust the height. The back feels pretty good. I can lean back and it doesn't hurt too much. I can sit in this for a decently long time without feeling any pain in my joints. The one thing, though, that I have noticed working at this desk during quarantine is that I tend to get wrist cramps because the desk might be a little bit high when I'm typing on my keyboard. So all of these things that I'm mentioning are related to ergonomics. It's the attempt to make the human-machine interface while you're working or on the job site as fluid as possible. So we want to design a better human-machine interface that doesn't lead to these chronic overuse injuries or workplace pain that would not only result in decreasing work output, but in decreasing quality of life for the workers. This sometimes is also called occupational biomechanics. Now, physical therapy, this is something that often comes to people's mind when they think of biomechanics, and it is maybe one of the most integrated practical fields with biomechanics. So physical therapy is obviously dedicated to preventing, evaluating, and treating movement abnormalities. Most of us have been to a physical therapist at some point in our lives. Disordered movement, whether that's caused by injury, disease, imbalance, congenital conditions, whether it's learned or due to an injury, these can all lead to injury and a decrease in quality of life. It can lead to pain. And so a physical therapist has to be familiar with biomechanical principles to really recognize and diagnose underlying causes of disordered movement. And then they have to be able to design an appropriate intervention. Maybe somebody comes in and they're having, right knee pain on the patellar tendon. And so the physical therapist might watch them walk. They might assess their gait. They might do manual muscle testing to see if their gluteus medius and minimus are activating well. They might take a look at their lumbar spine to check and see if they're in alignment or not. They might look at their leg length to see if there's a discrepancy there. They may evaluate their landing mechanics from a jump or from stepping off of something and then landing to see if they have a knee valgus, or if their knees are coming way too far over their toes and causing undue stress, that their quads don't have the capacity to absorb all that force. Within sports medicine, we have athletic trainers who are focused on preventing and then immediately treating injuries that occur in sports. So these methods may require things like bracing and taping, and these can both affect normal human motion. So we might use biomechanics then to understand how an ankle brace, for instance, affects the normal pattern of cutting that an athlete might take as they go through an agility test. Does that ankle brace decrease performance? More importantly, does it lead to some sort of maladaptive pattern of movement that could lead to injury further up the kinetic chain? Biomechanics can help us answer these questions. Pedagogy, so this is relating to how we teach people how to move, so both teaching and coaching. This begins with an understanding of motor behavior, as well as comprehensive knowledge in the content area, so in the sport that you're coaching in or in the discipline that you're teaching in. But biomechanics can help us to provide better feedback for the type of learner, their level of proficiency, and whether we need to give frequent feedback or no feedback at all, perhaps. And finally, we have adaptive motion. This is a growing field, and for good reason. More and more these days, people who have disabilities are challenging themselves and the whole concept of what a disability means by continuing to pursue sport and exercise at a high level. But we also have to keep in mind that there are individuals who are just trying to navigate the world with some sort of a disability. So these disabilities can be due to a loss of sensory function, whether visual, tactile, auditory, proprioceptive, perhaps loss of limb, perhaps some challenge for understanding instructions and selecting efficient motor patterns. And all of these various levels of ability have with them biomechanical implications. How do we change the pedagogy that we're delivering? How do we change the equipment that we're using for these athletes and for these people? How do we modify the closed versus open loop nature of certain movements so that we can get better movement outcomes for these individuals? So to recap, biomechanics is the physics of motion exhibited or produced by biological systems. It deals with not only kinetics, the forces acting on or produced by a biological system, but also with kinematics, which is movement through spatial and temporal domains. Biomechanics also relates highly to other disciplines in kinesiology like exercise physiology, motor behavior, pedagogy, etc., because all of these domains require human movement, and biomechanics is all about analyzing that movement to ensure better movement outcomes.